Hello, and welcome to Character Class. Today, I'm going to be talking about Vampire the Masquerade. Specifically, my top 5 tips for players of Vampire the Masquerade. I hope you're all ready for this. It's been a little while since we've had a character class. I'm trying to get some other things done, get things organized, find the time, but we'll jump right into it because this is what you came here for. Alrighty, are you ready? I'm ready. Tip number 5. Be prepared for the long game. Now, what I mean by that is, very simply, you're playing vampires, creatures of the night, which means they are only going to be active from sundown to sunup. So, in most parts of the world, that means your characters aren't going to have a lot of time during the summer hours, and they'll have more during the winter hours. But generally speaking, your character is looking at probably around an average of about 8 hours of activity every day, as opposed to everybody else who gets as much as they can manage to stay up. Now, in the world of darkness, this can be a liability. To vampires, that's why between that and the fact that they are immortal, they tend to be focused much more on the long-term goals, very long games, because in terms of game time, you could be seeing a campaign where a single storyline will play out over months, whereas with others, like perhaps mages or werewolves, that same storyline could play out over a matter of weeks. So going into it, know that there is a strong possibility of the long game being in effect for your ST. Any storyteller who is running a vampire campaign always has that in the back of their mind. They know these vampires are sometimes centuries old. They very much play for that long game. They don't do things immediately. There's no big rush to them unless it's a situation that calls for it, and then it's usually handled with impunity. It depends on how your ST wants to run things. Number 4. Some of you may not like to hear this, but leave the Sabbat to the storyteller. Now, that's fairly straightforward, but I'll explain it a little bit. The Sabbat are the evil vampires, the ones that are trying to take down the Camarilla. And the Sabbat tend to have two main clans, the La Sombra and the Tsunitsi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's how I pronounce it. And then there is any of the 7 Camarilla clans, or even some of the independent clans that are out there as well. Out of those 4, any one of them can be co-opted by the Sabbat and be one of them. They tend to be called anti-tribus, I do believe, at least for the Camarilla. I'm not sure what they call it there. For the independents, I'm not sure they have a word for that. But the Sabbat are the most heinous of creatures. They have literally no humanity. Where the humanity score is, they have a path rating, which is usually some other type of named path, and they're always very dark, very heinous, horrible, terrible things. And what I'm saying, I know everybody wants to play the bad guy. Playing the villain is the fun part. And granted, I can understand that. But in terms of a game like this, unless you're playing a um, like I can understand the appeal of playing a full-on Sabbat party. They're doing all these horrible things and all this happens, but most of those games don't tend to last overly long because the characters tend to get killed. It's simple logic. You start doing all these heinous things, people start coming after you. That's just how it works. Um, there's more opportunity for advancement, more opportunity for stories to play out in a Camarilla setting where your characters are Camarilla and have to advance and do all kinds of other things. There's just more opportunity there. Now, granted, a good storyteller could run a Sabbat campaign and do it for 2, 3 years of game time, or even 2, 3 years of playtime. Uh, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying that unless your ST is specifically setting out to do this, um, leave the Sabat to them. Focus on the Camarilla. Um, number three kind of works in with number four, and they kind of work together. Number three is don't be afraid of basic characters. Now, just as I said, everybody wants to play the villain. Everybody wants to have their character be special, be interesting, be a shiny special snowflake, a Mary Sue, or what have you. They want their character to be really cool and really badass and really fun to play. And I understand that completely. But doing this, it can cause problems. It can cause problems because if you've got characters that are possibly overpowered in one aspect, that's something the ST has to address or correct or balance in some way so that your character isn't just running ramshot over everything. The ST always has to make sure that the characters in the party balance out with the rest of the setting so that there's challenges available, so that the story isn't just torn through, leaving them with nothing. There's got to be that give and take. So when you're making a character, uh, especially if you've got a campaign that's going to be a group of newly turned vampires, which, if that's the case, fantastic. Because then you can look at it, this character isn't a vampire for very long. They've only just recently been turned. Possibly when the campaign begins, they will be recently turned and be learning and growing from there. So don't be afraid of going basic. Don't be afraid of thinking in terms of um, you can make them different in their personalities, different in their backstories and whatnot. That's all fine. You can work in great things with that, but don't be afraid to go to that basic, not standout-ish type of C, where you can take them and then that solid foundation and build up from there and have them grow out into something amazing. Uh, don't be afraid to start small. Is kind of what I'm saying there. All right, number two. This is a big one. This is a big one. So pay attention. Uh, do your research. Now, what I mean by that is there's there's a lot of there's a lot of material in these books. This is just the core book, and you see how thick that is. There are supplementary books, clan books, this, that, and the other thing. Now, all you absolutely need, is this book here, the core book. It kind of explains everything out. If you want to play a specific clan, it's a good idea to somehow get a hold of the clan book. Read up on that. Um, read up on whatever it is. If you want your character to be a doctor, to have like a medicine of like 3 or 4, check that out. See what types of doctors there are. Put a little effort into it. Get your research done. Because one of the worst things any ST, not just in Vampire, but any ST period, can come across is a player who wants to do something, who acts like they know when they don't. So if you have a player that's acting like, oh, I know all this, and then they run smack dab into you questioning something and they don't know the answer to it, even though they've claimed that they do, it kind of slows everything down. It causes animosity between the player and ST. It can cause lots of problems. So that's why I say do your research. I also say do your research because it's a pet peeve of mine. When it comes to Vampire the Masquerade, my particular favorite clan is this one, the Malkavians. And the Malkavians suffer from a permanent derangement right from the start. All of them. They all have some type of derangement. Now, there's a lot of people who play Malkavians. I've seen a lot of people play them at tabletops. I've seen a lot of people play them online, and they don't really do the research into the derangement that they're portraying. So it tends to come off very almost clownish and comedic in a way. And that is a pet peeve of mine because you're talking a mental illness. You're talking something that's very, very serious that lots of people suffer from out there. And just as a player, I want my characters to be believable when I play them. So I tend to do the research when it comes to Malkavians and their derangements. If I'm going to make one, I do the research. I find out how people act. I find out research. There's tons of stuff online that you can look up and find documentation on. So check that out. Don't half-ass your character. You want to put your all into it. That also comes in when if an ST asks you for, say, a background story for people that your character may have known. But I'm kind of getting into number one with that. So we'll go to number one and finish off from there. Number one is look for opportunities because this is where it really gets down to the crux of everything. Sometimes STs like to ask for background stories as well as people that your character may or may not have known, information on any contacts or allies they have, information on your character's life, personality, all this good stuff. Um, they'll look for information because a good ST will use all of this as potential plot hooks to get your character involved in stuff. As well as, for example, merits and flaws. Any flaws you take, those are potential opportunities for the ST to give plot hooks out, to cause trouble for your characters when they least expect it. And as a player, I can understand the necessity to want to shield your character from any possible hindrances. Don't do that. Do not see the ST throwing you a curveball as a problem. Look for the opportunity in it. And usually the opportunity is to make a good story, to make everyone have a good time. Even if people aren't directly engaged and playing at the time when your character is going through whatever problem it is, it still makes for entertainment for them. And as long as everybody is entertained, they're not feeling left out, and it's good times all around. So look for those opportunities. Don't be afraid to just be like, okay, I'm going to take this flaw and this flaw and this flaw, and basically I'll do a little blurb because it's asking for details. One prime example is I have a character who has the old flames flaw or old flame flaw in a vampire campaign that I'm currently playing in, and he used to be involved with somebody from the other side. And so I basically wrote up a brief little description. He was involved with a Toreador who went to the Sabbat. Uh, it's been a while since he's seen her. There's been blood bonding going on between the two. They're very much he very much has feelings for her still, but he can't be around her. And that was basically all I did. That little blurb, and I'm like, here you go. So, and we've been playing for over a year now, or close to it, on this campaign, and I'm just waiting and dreading the moment he brings her back in because he's going to. At any point in time, he could have this person show up, and because the wording of the flaw basically says, I don't have good judgment when it comes to this lady, she can be all kinds of trouble for me. And that sort of thing is an opportunity. It's not something to shy away from. So look for those opportunities in play, in character creation, and even when things aren't going your way. Stay positive and just roll with the punches. So that's about all I have for this episode. I've already run a bit long, longer than I intended. So until next time, take care and keep playing.